Welcome to Strategic Business Leader, one of your professional level modules for ACCA. I'll be your tutor. I'm Salman Faris, and I'll be taking you throughout this module for this program. Today, let's discuss what SBL is, what's the objective of this module, and what you as a student are expected to learn from this module. Having an understanding of the objective will help you understand the direction by which you should prepare. First of all, as you can see, this particular visual shows you certain important core areas in SBL. SBL was introduced to the ACCA program in the year 2018, which had replaced two modules, which was business analysis as well as corporate governance. This module is a unique module across all of your modules. SBL expects students to display their business acumen and professional skepticism. What the hell does this mean? So see, the uniqueness of professional qualification is for students to bridge the gap between academic knowledge and professional practicality. So SBL is a module that exerts this to a very high extent. Business acumen is one of the major skills tested in SBL. This shows in simple terms how practical are you. In this particular module, in the exam, you will be in a very senior position. It may be an advisor, a consultant, or perhaps you can be one of the directors in the board of directors. So sitting in such a major senior position, you might be given a case, a scenario where you might have to assess, comment, evaluate, or even provide recommendations, suggestions. So a student should not be purely theoretical. If it cannot be actually implemented, if it does not make practical sense, no matter how much you learn theoretical knowledge, as long as you can't apply, it does not provide yield. So business acumen, which tests how practical you are in your response. If you are evaluating, if you are criticizing, is it practical enough? If you are providing recommendations, is it implementable? So this is what it tests. Another key skill is testing the professional skepticism of SBL students. In simple terms, see, whatever decisions you take, may it be a evaluation, a recommendation of a solution, or an opinion, so all of these are decisions you basically conclude. So your decisions are based on the information you process. What is information? Facts, that is data, which is processed and meaningful, is information. And you evaluate the information to provide a decision, to come to a decision. So this decision can be anything. It can be a recommendation, it can be a solution, it can be an evaluation, it can be any requirement is basically at the end of the day a decision. But see, in the business world, can you guarantee every business will have complete information? Every business will have 100% accurate information? Is that realistic? No, we have seen a lot of corporate scandals where there is manipulation of data. If data is manipulated, what is information? Processed data. If data is manipulated, information is erroneous. So the decision we take, the conclusions we come into is not making any sense. That is not productive at all. So for you to understand the practical scenario, this skill aims to cultivate a sense of you being able to logically evaluate the information and question. So you should be skeptic. So this is another area, another skill that is expected from the students to display in the exams. Yes, sometimes information given can be totally correct, totally accurate in the exams, but it might be incomplete. Sometimes the information given in the exam might be partially manipulated, or it can be given in a way which is biased. So as senior decision makers, as senior personnel in the organization, you should have the sense of understanding possible problems, problematic information given in the scenario. So this is also another test in SBL. Now don't get scared, don't get scared. This is one of the very interesting modules. So see, rather than purely relying on memorizing theory, here it's all about application. Theory, models, concepts, what are they? How do authors create theories? How do authors create models, create concepts? That's through observing and researching the actual scenario in the market. Okay. How do authors bring these theories and models? Based on their observations in the market. So at the end of the day, these practical observations, these practical occurrences in the market is what is used to create theories. So as students, as decision makers, these theories, models and concepts are tools used by you to structure your response. Okay. These are just a tool used by you to structure your response. You have to do a particular activity. Does that mean there is only one proper way of doing that activity? Only one tool can be used for that activity? No. If you want to construct a house, does that mean there is only one proper way of doing it? No. Different experts, different builders have their own method of doing. Similarly, these tools are just a support for you to provide your response. That's why I personally recommend students, yes, you need to understand these theories because these theories are created, these theories are accepted because they make sense. But you should know how to apply them. You should know how to apply them. So coming back, these theories should be known, but even if you do not really recall theory, worst case scenario, due to the practicality of this module, as long as you are able to justify your data, justify the data in the exam, as long as you are able to logically analyze it, even without theories, you will be awarded marks. But if you know the theory, your answer will be more structured because it is supported by this theory which is globally accepted. Okay. So don't get scared in case you do not know, I am not sure what theory I should apply. These theories are supports. If you know, your answer can be structured based on the theory. These theories are well known, well accepted globally. So we can also say, yes, my answer was based using this theory, and all of you accept this theory in the corporate sector, which says my analysis is objective, it's unbiased. That's the purpose of theories. And it also helps you come into conclusions easily. Without the support of theories, also you can provide your answer, but it's a bit more cumbersome. But still, you will be getting marks because here we look at practicality. SBL, strategic business leader. As a business leader, how is your strategic response? Now don't get scared. Okay, so I just told you, you have many ways of getting marks. See, a business, most businesses are typically profit-oriented businesses. These organizations can be ranging from sole proprietors to partnerships to private limited companies to public limited companies. And all of these organizations are actually making money. Okay. Public limited companies will have a large amount of procedures, internal controls, established cultures, while sole proprietors might not have any of those. In sole proprietors, the decisions are taken based on the owner's wishes. It might not be structured. It might not be consistent, but still they make profit, they make money. Okay. So you can achieve your final answer based on the way you want, as long as you are logically right, as well as long as your answer is practical. Practical means implementable, right? So as you can see, this diagram, visual diagram, as you can see, shows us 8 areas that are often tested. Leadership, you are a strategic business leader. So as a leader, how is your response to a particular situation? Corporate governance, this also tests your skills in governing, in managing an organization. Strategy, what strategy? Strategy in simple terms refers to what you plan to do to achieve your objective. The set of activities you intend to implement to achieve a specific preset objective. How do you develop strategy? It should be logical and realistic. And then risk. They will look at your consideration of risk. Now, what is risk? Risk is any factor that would affect us achieving the objective. See, we are currently planning to do an action to achieve an objective in the future. If you are into sales, the sales executive or the sales officer will have a monthly target. So now he is working on increasing his sales to achieve the target, which is at the end of the month, which is a future date. So our objectives are futuristic. And strategy is basically what we think we can do to achieve this objective. And there is always element of risk, right? Why? There can be many uncertainties in the future. There can be many uncertainties in the future. Okay. There can be uncertainties in the internal environment and in the external environment. Okay. For example, think about COVID. COVID was unexpected. So something like that, or a flood, or as a cyclone, a landslide that is totally unexpected can basically affect us achieving our objectives on making money, on making sales. So risk should be identified, assessed, and also we have to decide how should we respond for risks. We'll be looking at this in the syllabus. Do not get scared. It's very interesting. So fourth is about risk response. Many organizations, basically small scale organizations, one of the major problems they encounter is managing risk. Why? They have their objectives which seem very realistic. They build up strategies now, that is what they plan to do to achieve the decided objective. But unfortunately, when there are unexpected circumstances in the future, they get lost. They do not know, okay, should I continue my current strategy or should I change? And they do not know how should I change my strategy. So this is one problem small scale organizations are affected by. For example, we have our annual profit as one of our corporate objectives. Unfortunately, the company is affected by exchange rate depreciations, where imports are more expensive. The company is affected by unexpected new competitors who are now trying to capture their customers. So the company might be a bit lost. So we have to identify possible risks, current risks and future risks, assess the impact, significance of the risk, as well as respond to risk. We'll be working on improving your skills on these particular areas. Number 4, risk. E, technology and data analytics. Nowadays, this is the digital era. Everything's based on internet. technology. So you as businessmen, as decision makers, also need to consider the role of technology, the role of data and communication, which is via one of the modes is through in the internet, in your business decisions. F. Right. F. Organizational control and audit. This is where organization set up controls to ensure that the businesses are run properly, as well as the role of audit, external audit and internal audit. Next is finance. In planning and decision making, as you as finance professionals obviously have to include the impact of finance in decision making. And at the end of the day, we discussed majority of organizations are profit oriented. So we need to basically evaluate, measure, are we actually making enough profit? So for this, finance plays a key role. Innovation, performance. All right. Next, innovation, performance, excellence, and change management. So see, earlier we discussed about technology. With the emergence of technology, new products are created. Consumers expect a higher standard of living. Consumers' expectations increase. Consumers' tastes differ, change. So an organization to be successful has to create a product that satisfies the emerging consumers' needs. Innovation is required. Okay. So the role of innovation is required not only on creating the product but also in every aspect. Innovate to increase efficiency in the organization's processes. Innovate in adapting the business model to cater to consumers' needs. So innovation is of paramount importance. And so these 8 areas, as you can see in the diagram, are the major skills which will be focused on in cultivating in SBL. So now coming back to the exam structure, we discussed the major content of SBL. Next comes the examination. Your examination will be a 3-hour, 15 minutes examination. So it's a typical 3-hour paper. And it's completely based on one organization, one case. Okay, so your role throughout the exam will be on the same organization in the same position. So it's one basic case or scenario. You will be provided a pre-scene 2 weeks before the exams, where the examiner has provided you 2 weeks for you to read this case, audit it, and for you to really understand what's happening with the company, the industry, the market, and any other possible information such as competition, such as possible risks, the company's SWOT. So 2 weeks are given for you to really understand what the company's situation of the company, the situation of the business environment. And then the next part of that is the post scene, is given in the final exams in the form of multiple exhibits. There can be 4, 5, 6, 7 exhibits. And you will have related tasks for which marks are awarded. These tasks are in the ascending order. For example, assume there are 7 exhibits, 3 tasks. So you have to first figure out, okay, first task, is it to answer the first task, it's basically dependent on the exhibits. Sometimes, for example, let's assume for the first task, the information is given in exhibit 1, 2, and 3. Then second task will be on the following exhibits 4 and 5. Third task 6 and 7. Now you might think, oh my goodness, the tasks are basically testing us on the exhibits. So what is the purpose of the pre-scene, which is released 2 weeks before the exam? So pre-scene is for you to understand the context, understand the situation. And in the post-scene, exhibits gives you the actual data that is required for answering the task. See, the same problem encountered by two different companies would yield two different solutions. Interesting, right? Same problem, for example, company A, company B. Both of them are in the, let's say, in the telecommunication industry. Company A, company B, competitors. Both of them are in the telecommunication industry. And now they're experiencing a common problem, which is a decline in profit. Both companies are having the same problem, decline in profit. Now you might feel two companies in the same industry, so they are competitors having the same problem. So can our solution be the same for both companies? Might not. I'll give you a contextual difference. Company A is the market leader. They are owning 60% of the market. Company B is a market follower. They own only 5% of the market share. Now, obviously, now the situation of A and B are not the same. They have their contextual differences. So, this contextual understanding is given in the pre-scene. In the pre-scene, you will be able to understand what is happening with our company, what is happening with the industry. Is the profit declining due to a decline in sales in the industry? Is the industry being unattractive? Or is the industry prospering, but there are other factors that causes the cost to increase? Or are there substitutes that basically affect us selling our products? So to understand that context, that is the purpose of the pre-scene. And certain information might be directly related to the exhibit as well. That's why do not ignore the pre-scene, but the examiner specifically stated, by evaluating the pre-scene, do not try to forecast what sort of questions you will be getting in the exam, because most of the times your estimations might not be realized. The exhibits can have some new information which is not connected to the pre-scene. So if there's new information, the tasks are based on those information. But it's good to know the pre-scene. It's good to analyze the pre-scene so that you are well prepared for the exam. You know what's happening, you know your current situation. Now, based on new information, based on the task, by understanding the context, you'll be able to easily answer. Okay, so that's your examination. A 3-hour 15-minute, that's a 3-hour paper. A pre-scene released 2 weeks before the exam, and a post-scene. Out of the 100 marks awarded, 20 marks are given for professional skills. So here you are a senior personnel. You are a professional. And your evaluation, your suggestion, your recommendation, your response should also fit your designation. If you are an advisor, you should act as an advisor. Your answer, your response should be fit for this position, because we want you to actually sit in this position as an advisor, as a director. So professional skills are awarded for the skills you exhibit, a total of 20 marks. So if you look at, okay, how do they give marks? There are many areas that are looked at while awarding professional skills. One could be the format of the answer. Sometimes the task might require to write a letter, a report, a briefing paper, or a PowerPoint slide, or an email. So you should be able to first adapt the right format. Second, you should be able to write your answers in a very suitable manner. If it's a report, it should be very structured, it should be concise, to the point, and it should be written as a report, formally, in a very formal manner. The formats, how you word your content, how you structure your answer, and then the expectations, very important, expectations. If they ask you to analyze, you have to analyze. If they ask you to list down the answers, then list, no need to explain. If they ask you to critically evaluate, then you have to be more skeptic and be very critical in evaluation. If they ask you to just provide a solution, then provide solutions. So that skill is part of the task. So when doing questions in the future, we'll be looking at this. So for these, they provide you marks in the exam for professional skills. Now, these are the 6 branches that are categorized by the examiner on the different skills that the examiner wants you to display in the exam. We discussed commercial acumen, business acumen. This shows how practical you are. Under this category, they might ask you to demonstrate awareness, use judgment that is very suitable, very practical, and also tests your insight. Are you able to analyze properly? Are you able to gather insights from the given case? Next, skepticism we discussed. Skepticism is how reasonable are you in questioning the facts given in the exam. They might ask you to probe, to question, to challenge. And then comes analysis. Analyzing the data and information provided. Can be to investigate, can be to inquire, and even consider. Next, communication. Communication is what is communication? Communication is where you pass on a message. Skills tested could be to inform. For example, you are informing your subordinates a message. This should be properly informed. If it's informed through a memo, you have to inform it properly. If you are informing through a meeting minute, if you are informing through a letter, that we should basically inform in a very suitable manner. Persuade, a persuasion, try to convince them. Clarification, okay, answering the possible questions they have. Next, evaluation. Similar to analysis, but now here you evaluate. They might ask you to assess, estimate, and even appraise. And finally, constructing your answer. We discussed the formats you present, the writing skills, the words, and how well you display your response, your answers. It should be in a suitable format. Your words should suit the situation, as well as it should be easy to read, easy to understand, and where the main points are easily, separately identifiable. So for these, they provide you 20 marks. Now, let's have a quick look at each of these skills. If you look at communication, we look at inform, persuade, and clarify. What is inform? To convey knowledge of a fact or circumstance. Okay. So obviously, we have to inform to a specific audience. You are communicating a fact. No need to go and further explain. Just say, this is what was decided, this is what you should do. Informing the changes informing the employees on the changes of, let's say, the organization's IT systems. No need to go and explain them further. Tell them we are having this change. Give them details of the change. Does not need any convincing. That does not give you marks. So make sure your answer is exactly tailored to the tasks, and you only get and you do not waste your time and effort in not getting marks. Persuade. Now we try to convince, to cause somebody to do or believe something through sound reasoning, convincing reasoning. Clarify is where you try to solve things, to make a statement or situation less confusing and more comprehensible. If you look at commercial acumen, demonstrating awareness, to clearly show knowledge or perception of a situation or a fact. Judgment, to exert your judgmental skills. The ability to make considered decisions or come to sensible conclusions. Yes, sometimes you come to an answer, you make the decision, you make the judgment. But if it is not logical, you have problems in your decisions, your judgmental skills. Showing insight, to demonstrate a deep and accurate understanding of a situation. Next, analysis. It can include investigate, to carry out a systematic inquiry to discover the facts of a situation. Inquire, that is to ask, to seek information, or to investigate. You can ask. For example, you can request, you can ask for information from the CEO. You can ask information from the finance director related to a particular problem you have. Consider, to reflect. Consider, This is to reflect deeply before coming to a conclusion. So those are the 6 categories that you can be tested on for your professional skills. And as we discussed at the start, these are the specific major areas which you will have to improve your knowledge and where the syllabus has been focused on. The area on strategy, business strategy, risk management, technology and data analytics, organizational control and audit, finance in planning and decision making, innovation, performance excellence and change management, and finally your professional skills. All right. And on top of this, we have corporate governance, which will be discussed under organizational control. So for your reference, I have extracted information on what each of these areas refer to. Professional skepticism, as we discussed, is your questioning attitude. You should be questioning rather than blindly trusting facts. Yes, you can't always be skeptic, but you should be reasonably skeptic. As long as you feel like this information does not match, something's fishy, then it's very fair to question. Corporate scandals happen because of things going wrong, and experts, investigators understood that there's something fishy, and upon investigation they find possible frauds. So professional skepticism is the attitude that includes a questioning mind, being alert to conditions which may indicate possible misstatement due to error or fraud, and a critical assessment of evidence. Yeah, if things do not match as per your sense, note it down. And then you can inquire, okay, I need evidence on this for you to trust. Just because you feel it does not match, that does not mean it's always wrong. So you need sufficient evidence, you will assess. And as long as there is sufficient evidence, information for you to trust this, that's fine. If it's not, that means, okay, you might have to further investigate. A strategic leader must exercise a healthy degree of skepticism, and not just accept information at its face value. A leader should probe issues, question assumptions, and challenge the status quo. He should express any skepticism in a courteous manner, explaining any concerns clearly. Be very careful. Be courteous. Okay? Because until you do not have 100% assurance that this is wrong, you cannot accuse. You just have to investigate. So when investigating, give sufficient respect. So this should also be displayed while you are responding your answer. Probe is to search into or examine something thoroughly. The candidate may be required to probe deeply into the underlying reasons for issues and problems beyond what is immediately apparent. Note, I'll provide a separate note, make sure you refrain from incorporating any details not stated in the facts given in the case. Very, very, very important. Sometimes the industry that is given in the case might be an industry you are personally familiar with. For example, you are currently employed in that industry, so you have far more better personal experience. Now be careful. The examiner is aware that out of the SBL exam candidates, there are full-time students who are not yet employed, and there are exam candidates who work in different sectors, and some of you would be coincidentally be familiar with the industry tested in the exam. Now the examiner does not want you to bring your personal information, personal experiences which is not covered in the case to the answer. You should not bring data which is not discussed in the pre-scene as well as in the exhibits to the case. Do not bring data outside the case to your answer. This is not recommended, and the examiner strictly stated, do not do this. There are two reasons. One is for fairness, obviously. There are candidates who are not in this particular industry. So we are not in equal standings. But more or less, the primary reason is, as a decision maker, let's say you are an advisor, you have been working in an industry for 30-40 years, and now based on your expertise, a company from a different industry wants you to act as a consultant. Now we are going to a different industry which you have not worked. So there you have to work with the information given. So the examiner tests your skills. Are you able to respond based on the information that is given? So this skill has to be tested. If you are bringing your personal information, then that means you are not making the best use of the information given in the exam. You are bringing something outside the information, outside the case. That's not what so the examiner is unable to test you. Test your skills on analyzing information, on extracting insights, and your judgment cannot be tested if you are not using information given in the case. If you are just relying on personal information that is outside the case, the examiner is unable to assess you. That's why the examiner strictly stated, do not bring data, information that is not given in the case study. Okay, but if you have personal experiences, you can, obviously the exam is a practical module. So if you have personal practical experiences, you can use that experience, but make sure you only reflect information given in the exam. Do not bring outside information to the exam. Use only the information given in the exam, but you can easily come into judgments, decision based with your personal experience. That can be done. Okay. Finally, challenge, to dispute the truth or validity of something. Now, in terms of assess, for example, here there is an extract of what sort of questions can be given. Now, do not think SBL is a pure theory paper. No, there is one area where we discuss using finance in planning and decision making. So, yeah, we look at basic information analysis that can be used for decision making. So, as you can see from here, assess is to judge the amount, value, quality or importance of something. Whereas you can see the requirement is to draft a consultancy report. See, consultancy report. So your answer should be in the report format. For the directors, so they are the recipients of DMG company, which assess, that's a skill tester, assess the company's performance between 2005 and 2008. So assessing is the skill you have to demonstrate. Okay, so those keywords are what is important for you to structure your answer. So in this sample question, 12 marks for the answer, 4 marks for professional skills. Professional skills may be additionally rewarded as in the following rubric. So if they are providing, let's say, 4 marks, you get marks based on how much of the professional skills that you have displayed. So this simple rubric has basically, it gives you an idea. For a 4-mark professional skill, if you have not demonstrated the required professional skills, you get 0. Not so well, you get 1.3. If you had done quite well, you get 2.66. So you get 1/4. 1.33 and 2.66, and if you have done very well, you get the whole 4 marks. So proportionately, you get marks. Okay. So as you can see, evaluation skills in assessing DMG's performance. If you have not displayed the skill at all, they give 0 marks if the candidate merely discussed the increase and decrease in financial ratios. You have done your ratios, but you have not assessed. You have just given, okay, the gross profit ratio for 2005 is so much, 2006 is so much, 7 is so much, 8 is so much. You have just got the answer, you have got the ratios done, but you have not assessed, you have not evaluated there. You get 0 marks of professional skills. 1.33, not so well. The candidate has attempted to explain some reasons behind the financial ratios, but some points are not relevant or unclear. Keep in mind, SBL is very practical. Whatever you say should be to the point, concise. It should not be ambiguous, not be vague. You lose marks. The examiner does not look at the quantity of your answers. They look at the content, the quality of your answers. So do not have ambiguous answers. And the candidate made weak and unjustified qualitative statements. Weak and unjustified qualitative statements. So they don't give you marks, but still, because you have displayed the skill to a certain extent, you get 1.33 out of 4. How will the candidate demonstrated? Third rubric. Quite well. The candidate has shown evidence of some explanations of the reasons behind the ratios, and there were some reasonable and justified qualitative statements. So there is nothing unreasonable, but you are not able to capture everything. But whatever you have captured are reasonable. You get 2.66. Very well. The candidate explained the reasons behind the financial ratios. So the candidate has captured the required information from the ratios, and based on this makes qualitative statements about the performance of DMG. The answer is presented in the correct format. You get full marks. So that's why the focus on following the right format, the right wording, as well as displaying the skills that is asked in the task. The relevant skill is basically presented in the task: assess, evaluate, and so on. So make sure you focus on that, because out of 100 marks, 20 marks, 1/5 of the exam marks comes from these professional skills. Estimate, the next skill. To roughly calculate the amount or value of something. Appraise, to balance relevant arguments and issues to reach an informed recommendation or decision. The candidate may have to consider facts, opinions, and findings objectively. Objective. As a professional, you should be objective. Later on, under professional code of ethics, we'll be looking at the considerations you need to have. For now, always keep in mind, you should not take sides. You should be objective. You should be true to your position. With a weave to balancing the costs, risks, benefits, and opportunities before making or recommending solutions or decisions. Next are presentation formats. Now, they might ask you, the tasks might ask you on displaying the answer in a specific format. It could be a briefing paper. So here, as you can see, a sample extract of a briefing paper is given. So make sure you structure your answer in a very similar method. For attention of subject, you can have your subject given. You can have your main subject, as well as you can have subheadings where appropriate. Since it's a briefing paper, do not elaborate in depth, have it in brief, but make sure you communicate the relevant message. So use short paragraph, 3 or 4 sentences each. Bullet points where appropriate, followed by full sentences. So below you can see an extract. For attention of the board of Nordland State Railways, the subject is directly given. It's about discussion of the strategic objectives. And then you have the content is given, which is very straightforward and brief. Next is on the presentation formats of reports or business case. So when it comes to report, obviously we can follow to, who is the recipient, from, who is the sender, that is we, to, from, date, subject, and then your answer. Since we are following a report, your answer should contain 3 areas. At the beginning, it should have an introduction of what is discussed in the report. Then second is the main body, where you have subheadings for relevant points. And finally, the conclusion of the report. And as you can see in the example below, to the board of directors. Obviously, since you are in a very senior position, you would be reporting to someone who is senior or in equivalent status. It's typically the board of directors or the CEO. From a consultant, the date is given, subject risk management, and then you can have those 3 sections: introduction, main body, and conclusion. The introduction and conclusion should be very brief. 2 to 3 sentences is sufficient. Do not just keep on writing. Do not waste time on that. But make sure you focus on the body, main body. use subheadings, use bullet points where appropriate. They might ask you for a letter. Then again, you can write the recipient to, that is name and position of recipient. You can write the date as well as address them. Dear Mr., dear Miss, dear Mrs. And then you can have the introductory sentence and then your body, short paras, and then end the letter properly. Yours sincerely, you can write your name and your designation. And here you can, in this particular example, you can see that the content is all in the left side where the date is in the right side. So that's the traditional format. In the traditional format, the recipient is in the left side, the sender is the right side, and you have the topic main heading in the center. So there are different formats. You have the traditional format. But if you can adapt this the method given in the illustration, or else you can completely move all of the content to the left side. The recipient to the left, the date to the left, the heading to the left, the content all left aligned. That's called the blocked format. So that's what is used nowadays in most of the businesses, the blocked format. So use the same format but have all of your content left aligned. Next presentation format that can be asked in the question is about presentation slides. So this is quite straightforward. So they might give you PowerPoint presentations, but there's no templates there. They might have blank slides there. So in a slide, always keep in mind, a slide is used to present the main points which you are going to discuss. So your slide should not be completely filled. It should not be like an essay. It should have very small content, limited content, but it should address the main points that should be discussed. However, if you want to elaborate on the points, that should be included in a separate notes. So they will have accompanying notes. So your elaborated discussion should be in the note. But in the main slide, which is presented to the audience, that should only list out in brief what are the main points of the presentation. Okay, because a presentation at the end of the day is not just to display, it's to present vocally. So keep in mind, in the presentation slide, the slide title should be there so that everyone knows what the discussion is all about. Use subheadings, bullet points where appropriate. Make sure the content is in brief, less, but only cover the main points. And accompanying notes, if required, you can have short paras there as well. Right? So here is an illustration of how the notes are. You can see on the notes, each point there are some discussions over there. And this is how your presentation slide would be. You can see the topic, purpose and role of non-executive directors, and your main discussions would be on 4 areas: developing strategy, holding executives to account, risk oversight, and people role. So this is what you will be discussing about. So your presentation slide should be concise, in brief. If you want to discuss, if you want to elaborate on this, that should be in the notes, as you can see: strategy, executives to account, risk oversight, and people role. This is in the note. Keep that in mind. Do not have your presentation slide completely filled with content. You lose marks. You lose professional marks. And in terms of writing skills, as a rule of thumb, yes, you know your content and make sure the reader is impressed in how you structure and how you start your answer. So it's very important to have good opening lines and good closing lines. Good opening lines are basically the first few sentences of your answer. Closing lines, how you end your answer. For example, in opening lines, you can see the briefing paper identifies the benefits of this section of the report considers. This report addresses so and so. And closing lines, in summary, the directors need to be aware of. So that basically provides a nice proper conclusion. So this is basically very important for a senior position, a person of a senior position to, display that, okay, I know how to properly have the start and the end of my discussion. So these are things that will basically help you in receiving better professional marks. Right. With that comes the end of the introductory session for SBL module, where we discussed the content, the main points of study in the syllabus, the skills you need to develop, the exam structure, as well as the main focal points you need to be aware in writing your answer so that you get 20 marks of professional skills.